we go, gentlemen. We are live.
Hey guys, welcome to the live podcast of the Goodfellows, and I'm your host Joe Barone. Uh, with me today is Louis Kasman. We also did a show previously this week that we will be airing on pretty soon. It's a really good show. This is a man who has been right here next to John Gotti like this. They were like this together in the street. Anyways, guys, you know about my Patreon channel. If you like to subscribe, please do all of that. Thanks for all my loyal fans, Payman, Suzanne, Johnny Provolone, The Wolf, Cynthia, of course, my good friend Dominick Cicale, Charlie Buono, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Anyway, Louis, welcome to the show. We got a lot of, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff out here that we didn't get to on the recorded show. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Beautiful day here in South Beach, and you got me off
Nice.
the beach with my family, but more than happy to do it.
Absolutely good. So, in our recorded one we did this week, we did talk a lot about and for most of the fans, you could still send in comments. My thing was, and don't get me wrong, a lot of people said about John. Remember, they said he ruined the mob and all of this kind of stuff, and I didn't like that, and I said that on our show earlier. If we could elaborate a little bit more on that, because there's a side of him that nobody really knew, maybe just the closest friends like you and everybody else. That's the kind of stuff I want to talk about with John. You know what I mean?
Well, John didn't ruin the mob. John was the mob.
That's it.
You know, through his whole era, it was all about John and about him going out and the restaurants and the vacations, and everybody loved this guy. We walk into a restaurant, you could hear a pin drop. 100 of people come over. Oh, John, nice to see you. Can I bring my son over to meet you, my daughter? He didn't ask for any of that.
Right.
You know, the media created what they wanted for that era and made all those reporters famous and made all those people famous. And yeah, was John a top-notch dresser? Absolutely.
Right.
John was a humble guy. John was a generous man. And he never said, oh, let's go here and let's do this and let's stir it up. We would go wherever we would go. People from other families were coming to see him and to meet him. And I'm not talking low-level guys. I'm talking bosses, underbosses. Who's a boss? Who thinks they're a boss? Who wants to be a boss?
Right.
Everybody. And even regular people, priests. I mean, Cardinal O'Connor, who was the Archbishop in New York. We used
Right.
to, Mrs. Helmsley had a 99-year lease with the Archdiocese of New York. And we would park our cars in the same location in the Helmsley Palace. And Cardinal O'Connor would wait to see him,
Wow.
And John wasn't a religious guy. John wasn't about that. He would wait to say, hey, John, how are you? Nice to see you. This is a Cardinal of New York. In fact, when he died, when Cardinal O'Connor died, his family extended an invitation to me. And I sat next to the Cardinal's sister and went to the funeral to pay respects to the Cardinal, which
Wow.
was by invitation only. So, I mean, we had relationships with everybody. The Prime Minister of Canada, Brian Mulroney, he used to come to Denoy, the restaurant that John allegedly owned. Donald Trump, Marla
Right.
Maples, all those. These were all these wannabes that would follow him and groupies and where's John going to be and this and that. He didn't send for them. He didn't ask for them. Everybody wanted to be around John. And that's the
Yeah.
way it was.
He was
And the
very
people,
charismatic.
very charismatic and very humble. That's
Okay.
just who he was.
Wow. Well, we just got a donation. Who I don't know who sent it in. Super chat. What is it? Timothy O'Reilly. Hey, thank you for the donation. Appreciate that, brother. I couldn't see it that good, but now I can see it good. Sorry about that, Louis.
That's okay.
Um,
The more donations, Joe, the better.
Okay. Okay, he says like this. Oh, Timothy O'Reilly, always lit cigar company. 3 Capo cigars. Yeah, that's my friend Dominick Cicale. Got the 3 Capo cigars. I love that. Thank you, Timothy.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
Louis,
John was a big cigar lover.
did he like cigars? Really?
Yeah, he used to like a cigar with a good martini. Yep.
Yeah. He wasn't really like a big drinker, was he?
Um,
He'd
I
have a
would say
drink here or there, right?
he would drink here and there, but he could drink. When he wanted to drink, he could drink. And you know what? You never knew when he was drinking. You never knew. No, always there wasn't a time in the multiple years that I knew this man where he ever didn't carry himself with
Okay.
with the always with the proper demeanor. That's just who he was. He could he could handle it all. You bring it and he'll handle it.
I've heard that a lot about him in the street. Even Michael Francis tells a really good story about that. But now we got a question for you, believe it or not. It says, please, Lewis, tell the real on the why you stopped going on Nadu's show. Okay. If you want to answer
Okay,
that, Lewis, up to you.
I have no problem with that.
I didn't think so.
Jeff made a lot of promises that he couldn't keep, what he didn't want to keep.
Okay.
He wanted me to buy his show. I offered to buy his show. And it was just, I'm not mad at Jeff. I really don't care if he's mad at me. But, I found him to be, a bit, you know, he didn't keep his word, and I found him to be a bit unstable. I wish him well, but no,
Yeah.
I'd never go on Nadu's show again. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done with Nadu.
I hope that answers that question. Also, that's why I said other people were saying that it got to his head a little bit, John, the publicity. Now, I don't
Well,
believe that either.
listen,
But
the publicity was created by the media, by John Miller, by Mary Murphy, by Larry King, by Barbara Walters used to call me 4 days a week, begging
wow.
me for him to do an interview.
Wow.
And he never gave anybody an interview. He didn't ask for this.
Hmm.
Barbara Walters would have flown to Marion. She would have flown to wherever he was, and never even verbally spoke to her. Would never ever give an interview. The media hyped it, and it just took on a life of its own. That's basically the best way to describe it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. The whole thing is with the cooperate. Oh, wait a moment. Did Sir or Junior goof? Oh, we got it from, how do you say that? Claim? Okay. Yeah. They said, did Senior or Junior goof on Angelo in his presence?
Who was that? You mean
I guess
Carmine Agnello,
I
his
don't.
son-in-law?
Agnello. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
can you see
Well,
it too? Or no? Can you
yeah,
read
I
it on
could see
your
it.
end? Oh, good.
Carmine was John's son-in-law at the time. Now his ex-son-in-law, Vicky, divorced him.
Okay.
Jo- J- uh, Junior was a bit jealous of Carmine because Carmine was a huge earner, a very, very big earner back in the
Is that the
day.
one that had the junkyard or something like that?
He had the junkyards and he had
Okay.
the tow trucks on the Bell Parkway, and he
Hmm.
had sheet metal shops, and he had garbage dump. Carmine was a very, very big earner. Vicky Gotti, the daughter, lived like a queen from Carmine. And Junior was jealous. And Senior was not jealous of him. Senior had an issue with him, and the story when somebody shot Carmine because John was pissed at him. But no, John liked Carmine.
Okay.
John Senior liked Carmine. He always said he's a good earner. Carmine had one problem. He has that bipolar disorder, and
Uh,
he couldn't hold on to money.
okay.
That's like the pot calling the kettle black because neither could John hold on to money.
Yeah, yeah. We know that from the interview I gave you,
Yeah.
because it's our second time meeting. So yeah, but
Yeah, like
that's a good story too.
John used to say, Lewis, tell Carmine he's got to hold on to money. And my
Yeah.
nickname for John was Grandpa. I say, Grandpa, you want me to tell Carmine? You can't hold on to money.
So let me ask you a question. How do you feel about like the way the mob? I mean, because like you really weren't part of the mob, but you were, you know, I guess you were that close to John, so I can't say you weren't part of it. You were still too, but um, like, what's your thoughts on the mob, at least today, and what it turned out to be, and the way it seems like it all fell apart. A lot of it, you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is this: when you see bosses, when you see Gravano destroyed everything. Once every family saw Gravano go bad, a guy admits to 19 murders. You can bet on it. There was 30 more murders, including his
Wow.
brother-in-law, Nick Shabetta. Okay, there was plenty of murders. When other families see him, and then who was that other guy, the Bonanno boss that John
Oh,
was
Joe
close to?
Messino.
Where you see a guy like Joe Messina go
Yeah.
bad, I mean, I would say Joe Messina is really what brought it all down. Gravano and Joe Messina. And then of course you got Gas Pipe. You had a lot of cooperators in the Lucasi family.
He
But
tried
then
to
it,
cooperate. Yeah.
but then again, you look at Genovese. You say what you want. That guy ran a tight ship. They run a
Yep.
tight ship. You got
Yep.
to give the credit where it's due.
That's true. That's why I was talking to Bobby Luisi, and he was up there from Boston, and he said the same thing. And we all kind of agree. Looks seems like the Genovese family is going to be the strongest ones around. Still, you know what I mean?
And I think you're going to see the Gambino family come back nice and strong. They got
Yeah.
some very, very, very good people in place. They got rid of Junior. They got rid of Richie,
Hmm.
Gotti. Pete died. So you're going to see. I think you're going to see the Gambinos come back very, very strong with the
Hmm.
with the people they got into play now. And you got Jeannie Gotti, who's home. Who I don't think, in my opinion, I don't know this, but I don't think after all the time he did, he's in good shape. And I will say this, John Senior, how many years did Jeannie do? 50 years?
Eugene did 25, I think, straight.
Okay, straight old law case.
Yeah.
John Senior made sure that his family wanted for nothing.
Hmm.
Emphasis on nothing. That
Hmm.
that that family, John made sure, and believe me, I know for a fact. John made sure Jeannie's family, Rosalie, and the kids were well taken care of.
Gene seemed like a good guy. Like I mentioned before in our recorded episode that I met him in El Reno,
Yeah.
Oklahoma. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was he's pretty cool.
Well, that's how I came into this whole life, was through Jeannie and Angelo. And then
Okay.
and then what happened when I first went to the Garment Center, Joe? What happened was Tommy Gambino was not being cooperative with Jeannie and with Angelo back in those days. I say back
Okay.
in those days.
Okay.
So Jeannie says to me, and I was friendly with John, but not as. Jeannie
Mhm.
says the only way you're gonna get Tommy to do anything the right way is you personally have to go to my brother and make it happen. And that's basically how it all happened, because
Ah.
Jeannie and Angelo were getting played with by Tommy. So
Okay.
they said straight up, you go to my brother. We can't go to my brother. He ain't gonna listen to us, but he will listen to you.
Okay.
And that's how I got Gambino, to do what he has to do.
Ah. I remember
And
you mentioned a lot of things about Tommy, but there is a question too. I want to get to that thing with Tommy and you, but looks like James Brown asks if you says Lewis, did anyone ever threaten you or make you afraid for your life?
when John was alive,
I
or
don't
back
know
in the
if you
day,
that.
well,
I don't know.
no, well, I'll answer that question.
Yes.
Back in the day, nobody, because they were terrified of John. I mean, the jealous people out there, what they thought, they never said,
Right. That makes
because
sense.
John would have chopped them up. The and the other people, nobody would say anything, between kissing his ass, my ass, and everybody, any ass they could kiss. They weren't saying anything. After this all happened, after John passed,
Well, yeah.
I noticed at the funeral, a lot of the jealousy was coming out. Let's face it, I delivered the eulogy. I brought the
Mhm.
body. I brought John home on a private jet, with Peter, his
Mhm.
son. And I delivered the eulogy, not his family, me. So,
Wow.
was there jealousy? No one showed it, but I felt it. Yes,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I'm sure.
I will say this: Joe Acuri, old man Joe Acuri, who was on the council. Do you know Joe Acuri?
No.
Okay, he was a wise guy for 100 years,
Okay.
a captain, and above that. And when I was at the funeral, he came up to me and he said, "Lewis, you're one in a million. There's
Wow.
nobody that took care of this man like you took care of him." From Joe
Wow.
Acuri's mouth.
That must have made you feel real good, right?
Well, it did, coming from him,
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
was one of my go-to guys when I was frustrated or I had problems. I would go see Joe Acuri. No one,
Yeah, you
no one
told me
knew
about
that.
him. Yeah, you were saying that. Yeah, that you could talk to him. Mhm.
Yeah, no one knew about that, and Joe would always give me the proper advice.
Do you still got a copy of the eulogy around? Do you still
I
got it? Yeah,
do,
right?
I do.
Okay. I would love to hear that one day just to see, because
Well, I
it
called it was called The Long Journey Home.
oh, really? Okay.
Yep, The Long Journey. You know, they talk about Florence ADX. Marion was worse than Florence ADX.
Really?
John,
Wow.
in the summer, the cell temperature in John's cell was 90 degrees.
Wow. Why not have the
Okay.
air conditioner in there? I don't understand that.
Well, they may have had it, but in his particular cell, it was broken.
Oh yeah, you know why they wanted to torture him? Because
They
the
wanted to
FBI,
torture.
and that's another good thing. I'm glad you brought that up. The FBI want to punish him even more, and even though the BOP has their own kind of rules, they listen to what the FBI says. They're all in bed together.
Well, now that John is gone, I have all that information on all the agents, the communications back and forth to the BOP,
Good for you.
to Warden Bill Hedrick. I know everything that went on now.
Good.
You
That should
know,
be exposed.
you
That
know,
should be exposed. I'm
you know.
sorry. That should be
They,
exposed.
they, they literally, and he would never. I got to tell you, he would never complain. They literally tortured him.
Wow.
Tortured him.
That's fucked. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's
Well,
messed up.
Joe, head, neck, and throat cancer, and they were
I know.
giving him. They were giving him extended Tylenol, 2 a day if he was lucky. After I would call up the jail and go crazy on the phone, they would give him Tylenol for cancer.
That's disgusting. I don't care who it is. It's disgusting. Oh, wait, hold on, Louis. There's another one on here. Uh, if the last indictment didn't come down, how much longer was it going to be before Senior took out Sammy? The wiretapes sounded like that way. That was the way John was leaning.
Okay, great question, by the way,
Yes, yeah, that was
listener.
good. Yep,
Great question, and I'm happy to answer that question because I want everybody to know.
good.
Before that arrest, John was taking Sammy out. John had it. If you listen to the tapes
Really.
in the Cirilli apartment,
Mhm.
John had it, and he was telling Frankie Lowe. You see, John would talk in the third party. And that's how he was talking to Frankie Lowe. And you can
Mhm.
ask Mikey Scott, anybody that knew John, when he was pissed and he was talking to you, if he was pissed at you, he was
Mhm.
talking in a third party, but he was directing that anger to you. So Sammy was done. John was whacking Sammy
Wow.
immediately. Okay,
Wow.
but what happened, and that's why I say you got to understand, Sammy's wife was in communication with the FBI on a regular basis.
Really.
She's the one at Sammy's direction that started the cooperation agreement going. So when John was ready to make the move on Sammy, and Tommy Gambino knew about it, I knew about it, I believe Junior knew about it, the people closest to him, because John at this point was taking the advice of. Remember, Tommy Gambino was a co-defendant in that case who got severed after the fact. So
Right.
Tommy would go on visits at the MCC. So they were able to
Ah.
have communications. So
Okay.
Tommy and I spoke about it, and John and I knew because I was visiting John every time I was permitted to visit, which was 3 days a week at the MCC, and John was making the move, and
Okay.
Tommy was going to be brought into the administration either in Frankie's spot or as a consigliere, Tommy Gambino, and then what happened? Of course, the arrest came down, and I'm sure the FBI at that point went to Sammy and said, "You see, Sammy knew it was over. He
Okay.
knew it was over."
Okay.
How many more people could he kill? How many more
Yeah.
people could he abuse? And the FBI, Bruce Mao, all those agents back then, and they sold a bill of goods to Judge Glasser. You know, there's
Judge
no,
Glass. Yeah, that's right. I
they
remember.
sold a bill of goods to Glasser.
Mhm.
Okay, there was, I would say there's 30, 40, 50 murders this guy's responsible for. But the
Wow.
FBI only made him plead to 19. So the answer to your listener's question is, yeah, John was taking Sammy out. Sammy was done. It would have been a different day today. Tommy
Wow.
Gambino would have been brought up, and I don't know what else would have happened. But yeah, John was making the move. John knew the biggest mistake John Gotti Sr. made was getting involved with Sammy Gravano,
Wow.
because
Well,
he's no bull. He's just Sammy, the pig, the murderer, the lowlife. That's what he is. There's no words
mm,
to describe the when his mother gave birth to him. That should have been an abortion when bad.
mm,
That's the evilness of this man.
wow. Well, let me ask you a question now. You might not be privy to this, but then again, I don't know. Do you know if John would have went through and took Sammy out? Do you know who you think he would have put in place or no? in his place?
Well, I think for a while he would have left Frankie Lowe because Frankie Lowe was the co-defendant, but
Right.
he was going. You got to remember, Tommy was the captain. Tommy got the most respect from John Gotti.
Mhm.
Castellano never treated Tommy with respect. He treated him with indifference.
Wow.
Okay, so John was going to elevate Tommy
Wow.
because Tommy had a crew around him, but he had a very low key crew. You know, he had Top Tomato, Carmine Sciandra. He had Joe Gallo Jr. Tommy had a very mellow crew around him. John didn't want to put him with a crew of really crazy things going on. You know,
Right.
John always put Tommy in a different level than the other skippers.
Yeah, he probably read them pretty good. Now, there's another question here by David. What does it say there? Goldman. Okay. It says, Lewis, it seems like you kind of had the best of both worlds. You had the protection of the mafia without having to hang the neck out and commit any crimes for them. You have a very interesting story. Thank you for that question. That was good. That's a good
Yeah, that's
question
a
too.
good question. Thank you,
Yeah.
listener. Yep, you know what? Your words are just what John used to say to me. Lewis, you have the best of both worlds. And yes,
Mm,
I did have the best of both worlds. He, you couldn't find a better friend. You couldn't find a better father. You couldn't find a better mentor. He was just, to me, he was just one in a million.
wow. Thanks for that answering that too. You know, you said a phrase that John said in my last interview with you, but I want to know if there's any more phrases too. You said, what did he say? You don't put your hands in anybody else's pocket. There's enough to go around. Is that exactly the way he said it? Or
He always used to say, and that was an expression of his, don't reach in anybody's pocket. There's enough for everybody.
yeah.
He used to say, never be a pig because pigs get slaughtered.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I like those little because a lot of these
yeah.
guys come up with some really good sayings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like one time on a visit, he said to his son, after Junior got invited, so he went on a visit. They were talking, and he says to Junior, "But where do you find all these people? Louis the Leprechaun, Frankie jump over the fence, Harry, Irving from the meat market, the Katz's Deli on Mulberry Street. Where do you find these people?" He says,
Right, right, right.
in all my years in the life, I never met Louis the Leprechaun."
See, that's stuff that nobody could even make up. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why I love that stuff. Oh, wait, we got another.
I have to tell you,
Okay.
he had a great personality, and when he was pissed off or he was mad, it used to come out even more. You know,
Yeah.
he would come out with, and sometimes you didn't want to laugh because I felt like you'd be laughing, but
Yeah,
you
you
just
don't
couldn't
know.
hold back. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, we got another one. If you could read that, but it says, did Gotti Senior allow you to participate in illegal schemes, or would he try to keep you away from all of that?
The answer to that question is yes.
Okay, yeah, that was a good question too. Yeah, I like that
Yeah,
question.
he was very very protective, very possessive when it came to that. And
Hmm. We froze up there a little bit. What happened? I don't know, Lewis. Can you hear me? We froze up a little bit.
We'll just go to.
oh, can you hear me
Oh, there
now?
you go. You're back. Yeah, got you
Yeah,
back. Yeah.
yeah. So one night I went to there was a crap game in the city, and I know who was running it. So I just whatever I went with I think Jackie knows went with me or somebody just to blow off steam and for some shits and giggles. So I like to play craps, but I'm not a
Yeah.
I'm not a good gambler. So
Yeah.
I lost a substantial sum of money. So the next day he comes into work. He comes into the office, and he would find out everything.
Yeah. Well.
Anything I did the next day. If I was in Atlantic City, oh, where'd you go last night? You told me you had a headache. You told me you had a cold. He used to say,
Yeah.
what's hurting you, Jew boy? Tell me what's bothering you. He said,
Wait,
so I would laugh. So he says, what'd you do last night? Oh, he used to call Jackie the cripple. He says, what'd you do last night? I heard you hung out with the cripple. I said, yeah, we went. He says, how'd you do? I said, I didn't do too good. He says, no, I know you didn't do too good. So he says, I says, what? He says, when are you paying the guy? I said, I don't know. You tell me. He said, you don't have to. He says, you don't have to pay him. It's okay. It's on me. But he says, don't go again. Don't
Yeah,
do it
yeah,
again. I never went again. If I would go to I says, I went to Atlantic City. The Beach Boys were there. He says, the Beach
yeah,
Boys. He said,
yeah.
what do you know about the Beach Boys? Well, he knew he would find out everything.
you, you
It
know,
would drive me
Louis,
nuts.
it's Louis. I'll tell you, it's so funny. You really can't keep that many secrets from these guys. You really
Well,
can't.
not, at that time, because everybody knew our closeness. So
Yeah,
they figured that, oh, I heard this about the kid.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I'm not a kid anymore, but then I was the kid. And they said,
yeah.
oh, let me tell the boss this, I don't know if he knows. So he would find out everything. And then when he
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
find out, he'd say to me, on Wednesdays in the summer, we used to go out to the Eastmore Riches. We had a house out there. Or we go to
Mm,
the Hamptons, go to dinner, whatever. And it was like my confessional. He says, all right, so tell me what's going on. What am I going to find out? What are all these do-gooders that want to bury you? Tell me. Yeah. Because, Joe, the jealousy was,
yeah.
now I do the look back. The jealousy, including his own son, with the exception of Peter. And
Hmm.
I have a very good relationship with his wife, who I
Hmm.
love, and, whatever.
Hmm.
And Peter. But, Junior, yeah, and I did everything I could do for Junior to make that relationship close. If it wasn't
Hmm.
for me and Tommy Gambino, John used to say to me, make him the wedding in McDonald's on 8th Avenue. I said, no, 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 no. John, we're making him a nice wedding because you know
Mm.
what? You're not going to be here forever and you're going to regret it.
Yeah,
And he
that's a
was so
decision.
happy. He says, I'm so glad you did this.
Wow.
And it's
Yeah, it
funny.
was big.
I want to tell you one thing. You're going to get a kick out of this. When I made the wedding at the Helmsley Palace for Junior, so of course, Mrs. Helmsley gave John her apartment, beautiful penthouse, 5,000 square feet,
Wow.
pianos, this, that, swimming pool, indoor pool. So
Wow.
I put Frankie Lowe in the next room over, and all the different captains made sure. Guess where I put Sammy Gravano and his fucking wife?
Where'd you put him?
I put Sammy on the 6th floor in a bed in two queen size beds. So the next day he puts a beef into John. He says, that fucking Lewis, look, he put me on the 6th floor. And John, afterwards John burst out laughing. He says, oh my God. He says, you got this guy crazy. I said, why? I put him on this.
Wow.
I says,
What happened?
why? I lost you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
There you
says,
go.
why?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
put him on the 6th floor. We were on the 30th floor. The elevator didn't go that high for him. And,
Now that's
and
funny.
And I wouldn't let Sammy walk in with John. I says, no, 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 no. We're not doing this a mob wedding. We're doing this nice. So I made John walk in with his wife and kids and family. And then
Okay.
Frank, and I had Sammy all the way. Sammy is still walking in, I think.
Hey, he's not enough far back. Wait, we got another question from Snake Eater, it looks like. Do you think Gene was upset with John for not letting him take the 10-year plea deal after the two mistrials? Gene did 20 years more than he had to do. That's a good question, too.
Good question, listener.
Yeah.
Yeah. John often said to me, I made a mistake, But back in those days, there was the rule between all the families. Nobody made deals. Nobody took pleas. Nobody did this. But I think, hindsight's 2020 if John had to look back, because let me tell you something. If Jeannie got out and Jeannie doesn't get that long sentence, be a whole different day. The Gottis would still be controlling the Gambino family till this day,
Mm,
because Jeannie Gotti was the real deal. He was the closest thing to John Sr. in terms of being a gangster.
really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I think if in hindsight, and I think if John admitted it to himself, because he said it to me, he would have much rather, he would have let Jeannie made the deal.
Yeah, and they don't like to admit when they make sometimes a mistake sometimes, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a shame too that his brother had to do all that time. We said that about even my friend Vinny Basciano too. The
Yeah.
same thing. He should have just took a plea and he would have been
Yeah.
out. You know.
Because think about it. If Jeannie makes that deal, Pete doesn't become the acting boss.
No.
Well,
Yeah. Right. Because Gene.
assuming Gene doesn't go to jail for something else, and
Right.
Richie is on the shelf. He's been on the shelf his whole life. That's where he belongs, on a
Mhm.
shelf, maybe on a shelf in a funeral parlor. And yeah, could you imagine your own brothers robbing you? Richie's trying to shake me down. I said, you're trying to shake me down? Are you crazy?
I never knew Richie or heard of him either. I
Uh,
of course Pete. I knew heard of him. I mean, and Gene, of course.
I went to, he had a represent, he went with me one day because Pete didn't want to go. Pete got scared to go to a sit down with the Lucases over Hudson and McCoy. So Pete was supposed to go. Little did I know, Pete sold me out. But, back in those days, I didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, well, you were
I was,
young too. Yeah, yeah.
I was young, and I had this false sense of security with John, even with John being in jail. So during the sit down, I saw what was going. I just walked the fuck out. I said to Joe C. and Sideburns and everybody else, I says, this sit down's over. I'm going to. They didn't know that I couldn't see John when he was in Marion. See, nobody knew that.
Ah,
The BOP wouldn't let me in. They said I'm a threat to institutional security.
oh, please.
So all the time John was incarcerated, once they shipped him out, although I spoke to him often, and that's another story. I spoke to him all the time.
Okay.
I never could physically see him. So when I walked out of that sit down, I said to Joe Caridi, as I'm going to see the real boss, I says, this sit down's over. And I walked out.
Wow.
And Richie Gotti stood there with his hands in his pants. Richie Gotti, the guy he's supposed to be representing me. Could you imagine?
Wow.
You want to talk?
That ain't right.
Could you,
Yeah.
those two brothers, Pete and Richie, the two biggest garbage pails you ever met.
Wow. It's just,
Yeah.
it's amazing how the brothers could all be different. Okay, we
Well,
got another. Yeah,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
I'm sorry. No,
Go
no.
ahead,
All
go
right.
ahead, Joe.
So this is Shia, right? Am I saying it right? Shay. I'm sorry, Shay. Other than John Sr., who did you have the most respect for in that life? That's another good question. We're just getting
Good
on that.
question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, of course, John Senior, I had the most respect for
Right.
for his temerity, for his ability, and his integrity as a mob boss and as a person. But after that, I would say Joe Butch, Vinny
Oh,
Butch.
Joe Butch.
I'm
Yeah, I
sorry,
heard
Joe
Joe
Butch
Butch.
Correa, the best.
Yeah.
Joe Acuri. I would say Tommy Gambino, a
He
brilliant
was more like a
businessman.
businessman, though, Tommy Gambino, all
Yeah,
right?
but Tommy wore a lot of hats. You see,
Oh, he
Tommy,
did? Okay.
if Tommy could change his name to Irving Levine, he would have been happy. He had his 300 million. He had his
Yeah.
penthouse in New York City. He had his
Yeah.
mansion in Key Biscayne. He had his mansion in Lido Beach. You're talking about his father was a boss for 20 years. Like John used to say to me, you know
Yeah.
how many wheelbarrows full of money that family has?
I could imagine. Yeah, we say that how many barrels of money they got buried in their backyard.
Yeah, so
We say that too.
but I would say those gentlemen that I mentioned, with
Well,
the
they had
captains
the Gambinos had basically they had that garment district for what? For how many years?
for 100 years. But
Yeah.
remember, Tommy married Three Fingers Brown daughter,
Oh,
Frances
really? Yeah.
Lucchese. How'd you like to go to that wedding?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tommy
Three
was
fingers.
Tommy's wife was a Lucchese. She was Three Fingers Brown's
Ah,
daughter. So Tommy and the Lucchese's they split that garment center.
okay.
They were
Okay.
splitting it, but the Lucchese's really ran roughshod over Tommy. They were until John became boss, the Lucchese's had the stronghold. Once John became boss and I was up there, Tommy had to, act more properly and take the proper ends because, that party was over.
A
John
lot of
wanted to, yeah, that John wanted it to end at that point.
a lot of people were afraid of John though. He was the real deal.
He was the real deal. But like I say to you, Joe, if you made a deal and you were honorable, you had no reason to fear John.
Right.
If you're a thief and you're a low life, then you had a reason to fear him.
That's the way it should be in all ways of life, anyways. That's the way it should be.
And all those skippers, all those 28 skippers, and all those skippers, I used to tell them all the time, John, they tell you got a nice tie. Oh, Chief, you look so good. John, he wasn't a businessman. You got to get it.
Hmm.
You got Jimmy Brown Fayella with the garbage. You got this guy. You got to get a handle on all this. And ultimately, he did. It was through
Wow.
Tommy Gambino, through Junior, through myself, through Joe Butch. It's too bad Joe Butch died. But, you know, you got to understand this Gambino, this is a huge corporation. You're talking huge. You're talking General Motors here.
Hmm. Hmm.
Construction, concrete. Forget about the extortion. I'm talking where the big money's coming in.
But well,
I'm,
now
I'm
there's
not
a
talking. I'm not talking the envelopes, Joe.
yeah. I get it. I get it.
It's same like Genovese. They're not looking to shake down a restaurant for 500 a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
We didn't
different,
even do that in our cruise. We didn't shake down people like that. We didn't do that either.
you know.
But now there's a good question up here. Now there's a question on. He says, "It was that Binkman, Blinkman." I'm sorry. Any thoughts on Greg De Palma and his son Craig? Did you know Greg De Palma?
I knew Greg De Palma. He was a real loudmouth,
Yeah, I know
uh,
him too.
a real loudmouth,
Yep.
and John didn't, John neither here nor there. And as far as his son, it's a tragedy what happened to the son, but the son wound up to be a cooperator and then had a stroke or try to commit suicide or whatever.
Oh, he was going to cooperate this son, but then he didn't do no
No, he
work
was a
either.
cooperator.
Oh, he was. Oh, I
Yeah,
never knew that.
Yeah, he was.
I knew he hung
cooperated.
himself in MCC, supposedly something, didn't he?
Back in those days, the FBI had so many cooperators, and I'm not talking associates, and I'm not talking made members. I'm talking captains.
Wow.
There were so many cooperators in every family.
Wow.
It wasn't
Wow.
exclusive. When they Gambino, it wasn't. Believe me, every family had their guys doing what they're doing. But yeah,
Now,
Greg De Palma was just a loudmouth.
I know I met him a few times. My what do you call it now? His son Craig though too. They said that his father paid $50,000 to get him straightened out. I don't know if that's true either. I don't know if you heard that.
I don't know either.
Yeah,
I don't know either. I don't know if that's John's style. You see, you got to understand, John was not about money.
Yeah.
He was
Okay.
not about money.
But he made a lot of money.
He made a lot of money because he had people like his son, like myself, like Tommy Gambino, and a few other good skippers. And all the other skippers, once they knew John was surrounding himself the proper way, all these skippers that were giving him the bullshit, they didn't give him the bullshit anymore. They were starting to
Yeah.
it was starting to, they were starting to do what had to be done because they knew what the penalty was if he found out,
Yeah, of course. Now it looks like I got a question over here from I can't. Oh, Paglione Jr. Okay. Good afternoon, Joe. Do you know about the office who ran it upstairs in Newburgh on Broadway? I was around 13 years old then. Thanks, Goomba, from Vinny the Wolf. Hey, Wolf, the Wolf. Much respect to you too, the Wolf. Yeah. No, as a matter of fact, I don't. My friend of mine had a strip club up there in Newburgh, but that was about the closest I ever got. But I don't know about the office or anything like that. Sorry about that. And all my other guys, I got Payman and Suzanne, and I got a lot of good followers. Really, Cynthia and them, and yeah, I got a lot of good followers. Joe Preble, right? Joe Provolone, Johnny Provolone, my man. Yeah, I like that name. But so getting back to that, yeah, no, you're talking about big things, not just like envelopes. This is big
No, I
business.
mean, you got to understand, you had construction, you
Yep.
had the unions. John didn't have to shake down Starrett Housing. John don't have to shake down the Trump organization. You just go through the unions. The unions will run these jobs. Trump could
Okay.
go on a job. These guys that own these big companies, they go on jobs. The unions control these jobs. That's who's
Right.
running these jobs.
Right.
That's who's building these jobs. You don't do you don't want you don't do the right thing. They shut your job down.
That's it.
The electrical union, this union, and remember, all the families share in that. So, and remember, another mistake. Sammy was handling construction.
I heard that. Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
Sammy says, "Oh, I went to go see Trump," and and he didn't want to see me, that's bullshit. Because John never wanted to see Trump. Had John wanted to see Trump, he would have been sending me, not Gravano.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
because Trump's accountant and I knew each other. So I had access. John wanted nothing with Trump at all. What would you need
Yeah.
Trump for? You got the unions on the jobs.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to talk. You don't have to bother with him.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, Lewis. Looks like we got a question for you. Pete Byron. Lewis, anything to add on the Long Island Sopranos bust early in the 2000s? Your name was mentioned, they said. Okay.
Yep. That's
Oh, it was. Okay.
That's the thing when I was in business with Frank Basile and Roger Basile at Hudson and McCoy and Freeport. What had happened was Frankie and I grew up together, Merrick
Okay.
Belmore. We were best of friends. And as you know, I was the executor for his father when the father passed away, Philly Basile. So we were always close all the time, Christmases, whenever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what happened was Roger Basile and Frank Basile didn't get along. So the Lucasis were trying to extort Danny Gatteo and Joe C were trying to extort Roger and Frank Basile. So I told Frankie, I says, just give Danny Gatteo $1,000 a month. That'll keep him quiet for a while. They're not going to do anything because you guys owe me a ton of money. We're in the seven figures. They're not going to make any move
Okay.
with you. So what happened was Roger Basile, who was on the down low cooperating with the Eastern District, okay, had a meeting with Joe Caridi, okay, but Joe Caridi didn't know he was cooperating,
All right.
and so there was a whole big beef. Pete was getting an envelope of 500 a week from Hudson and McCoy, okay,
Okay.
and that's my uncle Pete, my devoted uncle, who was so devoted to me and his brother. I'm being very sarcastic, as you could tell.
I know that.
Pete used to sit in Freeport in the condominiums with binoculars and count how many people I do on a Sunday. But the
Get
problem
out of
was
here.
my hand to God. But the problem was Pete couldn't count past 10. So so after he got to 10, he had to get one of the other morons that were around him to finish the count. So what happened was Pete sold me out to the Lucasi's, and they made the move on the Basiles. Pete says to me, "Oh, you better go." He says, "What do you owe at Hudson and McCoy?" So I never told Pete the truth. I says, "No, we're getting close." But I took my whatever they owed me out of that venture. I got what I had to get, as best as I could,
Right.
and there's always a little here, a little there, because
Yeah.
when you're involved with that type of level of money, you can't really. It's hard to remember everything.
Sure.
But I have a pretty good memory, Joe. So
Especially when it comes to the money, right?
yeah, well, you got to have a memory, and
Yeah.
so I saw what was going on, and I did what I had to do, and then of course they took over. They threw the Basiles out. They were taking. They made Chubby Guarino, who was Phil Basile's best friend, Uncle Chubby, who was a good guy. He died. They abused him. Chubby used to take. We had an outside bar. Chubby used to give Joe C 15,000 every Saturday night.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Basiles went bankrupt.
Right.
And that was it. They cleaned the Basiles out. The Basiles went bankrupt because of that. The worst family, the worst organized crime family, the most unethical scumbags you will ever meet is the Lucchese family.
Wow.
That whole Joe C crew, Sideburns, Joe C, all of
Hmm.
them, garbage. You can never make a deal with them. They're dishonest. They lie. They cheat. They'll stick up a 7-Eleven for 200 a night. But Joe C's dead. So karma's a
Yeah.
bitch, Joe.
Yeah. Of
You know,
course.
but
It always
but
is.
they used to rob Pete. They had a titty club in Huntington. And I'll never forget it. Sally Scala says to me, "Lewis, meet me. I want to go take you for a walk at Huntington Mall." And Sal and I were good friends, a captain, Gambinos. He says,
Mhm.
"Lewis, Pete's screwing me. If you think he's going to help you with Hudson McCoy, he's selling you out as we speak."
Yes, he
Selling me,
knew.
yeah. His brother's adopted son, Lewis, he's selling you out.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
this is a captain that told me that. He
Mhm.
says, "Get your money and get out of there." He says, "He's screwing me." They had the
Wow.
titty club in there. Then they had the titty club in the city. Pete lost that all to the Lucchese's. Pete lost every sit down.
Did you know Joey Bacala from the Lucchese's too?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it
Listen,
was my uncle's.
try to stay. I'm telling you, the worst of the
Yeah.
worst.
Yeah.
But now you take a guy like Louis Didone, Louis Bagels,
Yeah.
one of the best guys I ever met.
Yeah.
You
You're
met
always
a,
gonna
you
get a
made,
few.
you made a deal with him, and that was the deal. But
Wow.
between Casso and Gas, they've been through so much shit. You know, just a
Well,
bad
Gas
bunch of
Pipe was like
people.
a serial killer himself. So whack
Him
job.
and John used to say they could be roommates. Him and Gravano, they should be
Yeah.
roommates.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
they should have put them together.
Well, we got another one coming up here. He says, from the Snake Eater again. How much influence did John have in the media, in mediating the war in the Patriarca family in the 89 and 90? In other words, what did John think of the FBI bugging the uh, induction ceremony in the Patriarca metaphor in 89? Wow. I didn't even know
But
they did that.
yeah, they did do that. But that's a good question. And
Yeah, I met Raymond Patriarca Jr. in Milan, Michigan when I was there.
yeah, John had a vast influence over that family, and
Oh,
that's really all I'll say on that.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
he had vast influence over that family.
Okay, so that's it, Snake Eater. That's the answer you got. But I appreciate that, Lewis. Thank you. Now we got another one here. Spartan Creed. I think I said it right. Spartan Creed? Yeah, Spartan Creed. Did John ever abuse Tommy Gambino in front of people? I've heard different stories.
On one occasion, at the Ravenite, John, I wouldn't say abuse. Let me change the
Okay.
word. John took Tommy to task
Okay.
because what happened was Tommy went to a sit down. No, that's another story. I'm confusing the stories. That's another story for another, if someone else wants to ask that question. But I'm going to come back to this question. I would say John took Tommy to task, but John had strong feelings and affection for Tommy Gambino and was very protective of Tommy
Mhm.
Gambino. Because when
Okay.
Tommy wanted the severance, John's the one that says, Tommy, make the motion for the severance. You don't belong in this case. Because Tommy was part of the case. Tommy
You're
would have
right.
wound up getting life.
He's still alive, Tommy, or no?
No, he recently died. He died at
Okay.
95. Tommy lived a
Yeah.
good, strong mafia life.
Wow.
95 with
Yeah.
500 million in the bank that we know about. Yeah.
500 million, bro. That's
That, like I said, that we know about.
yeah, that we know about. Exactly. Wow. Yeah, we got some pretty good questions over there. Any more for Lewis? Any questions? Oh, look at this. We got another one. Oh, wait, hold on. Ryan Brown, Joe, I'm late. No problem. A few quick questions for Lewis. Of course, that's why he's on. Did you know Charlie Cargliano? Can you read it over there, Lewis?
Yeah, did you know Charlie Koenig? If so, was he scary? I knew Charles, not well. Was he a scary guy? Did he do a lot of work? Yes.
Huh.
The
Uh,
caretaker of the Bergin Hunt and Fish was Pete Gotti.
okay, so there you go, Ryan. There you go, Ryan. That was good. Yes, yeah, that's a good. That was a good question too, because I heard the name, but I never knew him.
Yeah,
The name was known.
Charlie Koenig was a legit tough guy.
Oh, he was right.
Yeah.
Okay, we got another one here. He says a few questions. This must be his other one. He said, I saw a video of a prank spy TV tried to pull Alan Gotti Sr. They first went to the Bergin and guy Bergin and a guy who was standing outside. They called Little Joe, Googled him. He was the caretaker of the Bergin. So
No,
that's
little Joe just used to clean up the Bergen. Nice little
okay.
knockaround guy who John used to take care of. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
okay, there you go. Hope that
Now,
answers that too, Ryan.
the Bergen Hunt and Fish, there was two sides. The left side's where all the guys went, and the right side is where John would go, where he had his barber's chair, where he get dressed, and where Fat Bob, that's where Fat Bob, who was like his valet or his, guy that took care of all that shit. That's
Right.
where, that's where that went on. So
Boy,
there
I
you
think
go. Yeah, the
good
left side and the right side.
it's good you remember that stuff, though, Lewis, right? I tell you.
Yeah, you got to remember, because if I would go on the left side, he'd scream at me, and if I went on the right side, he would scream at me. So I didn't know which side to go on.
Yeah. Now, I guess this guy, David Goldman,
Oh,
yeah,
David
said,
Goldman, one of my
y-
landsmen.
okay. He says, did you ever want to become a made man in the mafia?
I had it better than that.
Yeah, I was
I
going to
had it
say,
better than that.
yeah, why would you?
I had 24 access to the boss of the Gambino organized crime family for the entire time he was the boss. Who
You
had it
can't get
better
better
than
than that.
Who
Yeah.
had it better than me? There,
Yeah,
there were there were street guys that would give their right arm to have that.
absolutely. Absolutely. That was a good question. Yeah, why would you want something you already got and better? Okay, here's Ryan again. What were Lewis's thoughts on Gotti Senior's brother Richie and Pete? Well, Brian, you did come late. Ryan, you did come late because we already went over that. But if you want to elaborate again, Lewis, that's up to you.
This is very therapeutic for me today, I have to say. But
Good.
I'm missing the sun. It's beautiful here. Okay,
Well, we'll cut you out in a little bit. Don't worry.
all right. Well,
Thank you.
Richie, who John called Pee Pee Brain, very apropos title for him. Richie, let's put it this way. Richie's job at the funeral was to tip the drivers of the car $4,900. Richie stole the money and never tipped the guys. And Danny
Wow.
Marino, who's still with the Gambinos, came to me. He says, Louis, I know the answer to the question, but I just want to hear it from you. I says, yeah, Richie robbed the money. And Richie, there was $50,000 put on the side by the administration for John's funeral, and Richie stole that money too. So,
Wow.
so I wrote a check, which your guy Mo has a copy of, which I'm sure Mo could put up, which shows that I paid Papa Vera Funeral 50 grand for John's funeral because Richie stole all the money.
Yeah, we will
Now,
show that. Yeah,
yeah,
we will show
Mo's
that.
got it. And as far as Uncle Pete was just not an intelligent man, and he saw all this money. And as John, you want another expression for John?
Yeah.
Greedy people he used to call green eyes. So
Oh, really?
Uncle Pete had green eyes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
unfortunately, as an acting boss, he was, Uncle Pete was a borderline, ignoramus or borderline retard.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's so
Shane,
much for Uncle Pete. I sell out, but you know what? He sold out his own brother. He didn't sell me out at Hudson McCoy. He sold his brother out because remember, I represented the boss of the family in those days. So if you were going to abuse me, you're not abusing me.
right.
You're
It's really,
abusing John.
yeah, exactly. They don't realize how that works.
And
Well,
and
Louis,
and Pete allowed it.
Louis, you want to go get some more sun? We're going to have you on again. You know that.
All right.
We got a lot more stories, and I'm going to air probably the show soon, the one we just
Okay.
did.
Good,
But I
good, good.
appreciate you. Hey, I hate to take you away from the sun. You got to put a little sunblock up here, though. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I know. I'm getting a little red over here, and I'm
Yeah,
losing
yeah,
some
yeah.
of my hair. Man, what are you gonna do?
This is what happens when we get to be our age. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And make sure you keep that Mo in check.
Yes, I will.
Make
I
sure.
definitely will. I
All right.
definitely will. Yeah, I definitely will. Listen, Louis, thanks for coming on. Enjoy the rest of the day with you and your family, okay?
Okay. Thank you. You be well, Joe. Bye bye.
Thank you. Good seeing you. And we're still live, right?
We're still like, you want to answer some of our comments and questions?
Yeah, yeah. You don't mind? Guys, yeah, have been just doing a lot of interviews, just getting a lot of stuff going like that. So I'm going to definitely answer some of the questions that I got because we're going to set aside one day, hopefully next week. And so many questions I haven't been able to get to. Also, the phone calls that came in and some of the emails. So I will get to them. I promise. I'm not avoiding or ignoring anybody. That's not the way, and you guys know me long enough. That's not what I'm going to do.
We'll start with a couple of voicemails, right?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right, guys. We got a voicemail from George here. Hold on one second.
Hold on.
Hey, Joe, it's Jim Boudreaux out here in sunny California in the Bay Area. I just was watching your podcast. Your number came up, but I just want to talk to you about, like, my family from North Beach and San Francisco, and about, like, we had the Chipino, the boats come in. Anyway, I was going to talk to you about some of the recipes, and I love your podcast. Thanks a lot, Joe.
Thanks, George. No problem. Thanks for calling in. Yeah, I got a lot of different recipes, real ones, not only just the jailhouse ones. And yeah, we could definitely talk about it. Anytime you want to, send in more comments or whatever, we can definitely talk. Maybe I'll try to give you a call back and see what we can do. Thanks for that.
Here's another one from Jeff.
Your mic on too, right?
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Jeff Dominick. I'm a Paisan, and just want to let you know that a couple months ago, actually it wasn't a couple months ago, it was about a month ago, actually. That was last month. Over at the Kitchen Consigliere, which is a restaurant, Kitchen Consigliere, a restaurant in South Jersey, in Collinswood, New Jersey. There's a guy that owns that place named Angelo Lutz. And some Bonanno guys last month went in there and confronted him on they took him outside, out in the front, and they confronted him about saying that he was a member of Cosa Nostra, saying in interviews that he was that he was an associate of the Philly mob, and yada yada yada. So they told him to keep Cosa Nostra out of his mouth and stuff like that. And one of them even pushed him. So I'm just letting you know for your own knowledge, so you're aware. Maybe you could say it on your show. You could talk about it on your show. Angelo Lutz was very close to Skinny Joey, very close to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to let you know that. But I don't agree with the fact that you ratted, though. And same thing with Dom Cicale. You guys both ratted. That I'm not for, but I just wanted to let you know some recent news. Have a good one.
And who was that again?
This is Angelo. Oh no, this is Jeff. His name is
Jeff. Yeah, Jeff. Thanks. Yeah, no, I don't. Thank you for the. I'm gonna actually send that recording over to your recording to Dominick and see what he says about it. And listen, you're that's fine that you feel the way you feel about Dominick and what I did and stuff like that. That's cool. Believe it or not, I still don't like it either. So I definitely agree with you. But thank you for that. Yeah, we were going to talk about it on the show. I'm going to get some input from Dominick. Maybe Dominick had heard that too. So we'll see what happens. But thank you for that input. I appreciate it.
That was all the voicemails we have, guys.
Okay.
We'll go over to some comments that we had.
Let's do it.
Some recent comments on the videos here. Let's get on. Alrighty.
What do we got?
Cagney99 says, how much time have you done total?
Well, let's see. I got 4 years on my first bid. So, but I did exactly 3 years and 6 months to the door. And then on my second bid, I did 19 months, but I did 15 months in the box. And they usually count 2 days for 1 day that you do in the box. So you could do the math like that. So pretty much that's about the total. But I mean, you can't count times I was just locked up overnight or whatever the case may be. Those really, to me, don't count. But that's much time as pretty much I've done.
Here's one that was sent into our email.
Okay.
And guys, all the information, our email is on our channel if you want to send in your own questions. Here, this one's from WP. He says, I really enjoyed your podcast and I'd like to check out your Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 questions for you if you'd be able to answer them. A lot of talk is about the territories of all 5 families in general. I know they operate all over, but if you were to say which places they operate mainly, which borough would each of the 5 families call their main territories? For example, many say the Genovese were on the west side and operated mainly in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Also, do the families actually call themselves by their FBI names, or does each boss refer to his family under his name? Thank you.
Hey, that's a good question too. Yeah, the Genovese is more or less like on the west side, and then like in the Bronx more like that. That's actually true. Also, they do call they know the families they're with. Listen, there was one thing we heard a long time ago that Joe Massino wanted to rename the Bonanno family the Massino family. But no, they don't really go by their own names. They stick to the regular family names. This way, because there's power in that. You know what I mean? You're from the Genovese family. You're not going to want to call yourself by your own name, more or less. But they know who you're with.
This one's
That's a good question.
This one's from Michael. He says, hey, Joe, I enjoy the show. I'm from South Side, and I'm pretty sure you're from up the West. I think we went to school together. I remember you in the cafeteria being rowdy, but in a funny way. Isn't it funny how New Rochelle is a big city, but everyone knows one another? I'm going to say from school, I'm Jefferson, Isaac Young, then the high school. We will never lose our love for New Rochelle. It was a great place to grow up. When you did something wrong, the cops would take you home. And that was honestly worse than going to the police station. I forgot class of 81, barely made it, LOL. Take care, Joe, and I'll be tuning in to watch live.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're about almost the same age. Seems like you might be yeah, we're probably close in age too. Of course, I didn't go to Isaac Young, went to Albert Leonard. Of course, both of us wound up in New Rochelle High School. Years later, I wound up living across the street from Isaac Young over there on Pelham Road. But yeah, we it is, everybody knows pretty much everybody in there, and it's almost like the same thing as Wise Guys. We'll, even if you weren't there when something happened, you still heard about it and stuff like that. And sometimes the stories will get a little twisted, but most of the time it's pretty accurate. But yeah, New Rochelle is like a big. Well, there's a lot of things in New Rochelle. That's why a lot of times I wanted to talk about, because I'm actually going to get on the. I'm actually going to do, like I said, I'm going to answer more questions on one show, and I'm also going to talk about still Frank Cataballata. And I also want to thank Charlie Bowden for getting my view to him about. I guess I talked about him on one show, and he sent him the thing. Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate that. I don't know if he did it for a good reason or a bad reason, but maybe I'll mention you a little bit on the show too, depending on what's what with that, how I feel that day, because we got a little history too. But anyways, yeah, I'm going to mention about Frank Cataballata. Maybe you know him too. Maybe you don't. He's a little younger than us. And a lot of guys in New Rochelle, listen, for the most part, I used to do a lot of stuff in the lunchroom. I did Elvis Presley on the lunchroom tables. We had a lot of fun. I was almost like the class clown in a way. I mean, I wasn't really looking to be a tough guy or anything like that. I mean, of course, I had to have fights because, Mike, you probably know the way New Rochelle is. And sometimes you fought some people you didn't want to fight, some friends, whatever. But I grew up like the West Side, and South Side was tough too. You had the Lombardos over there. You had a lot of good guys from that area too. And then the West Side, of course, we had the Third Street guys. All these guys were good. I mean, I miss my friends that I used to hang around with: Patsy, Charlie, Louie, Lenny. Lenny and I used to work out at the gym together. We used to go in the blizzards, snow. We snuck into the YMCA back in those days. We used to wear those parka coats with the big hoods with the fur on it. That's how dedicated we were to working out back in those days. So, yeah, we, I had a lot of close things, like that. And then one good thing was all our families, they always looked out for all of us too. They would be like, stay out of trouble, this, that, forget it. What's this here? We got
Kaim Putz says, did you know Angelo Prisco?
No, I did not. I heard of him, but I don't know. I didn't know him.
And then we got one this was on the Aeroloda interview. He says, hey, Brother Joe, thanks for the interview. I always like hearing Anthony. He tells everything straight, and he was a huge earner and a very capable guy in the life, and he still is a big earner and could be capable if he had to be. I like hearing anything about the Patriarca family because, as I mentioned in my past comments and the email I sent, I grew up in Patriarca's neighborhood from the 60s to 89. You're a good man, Joe. May God continue to bless and protect you, your family, your friends, and your future endeavors. Amen.
Hey, thanks very much. Yeah, I had a good interview with Anthony Alada, too. He's got his own book out as well, and his wine. He's got wine out, too.
Patso Wine.
Patso Wine.
His book is called South End Syndicate, I believe.
Yep, South End Syndicate. Yeah, so I had a really good interview with Anthony. Yeah, he was definitely good earner and ready to do what he had to do. The Patriarca family, like I said, I was in prison with Raymond Patriarca Jr. Matter of fact, we were going to have a problem. There was somebody cursed him out. We were playing. It was in Milan, Michigan, and we used to play. What's that? The balls you roll to each other?
Bocce ball.
Bocce ball. So we were playing that. I guess some guy cursed out Raymond. So Baby John. I don't know if you guys heard of him, but Baby John, he was from Mulberry Street. He's got Cafe Palermo on Mulberry Street. He owns. I think he lives in Staten Island now. But Baby John grabbed me, Bobby DeFeo. He grabbed Johnny Artuso. I don't know if he grabbed, I forget who else. It was I think it was like about 4 or 5 of us. We were going to go duke up the guy that cursed at Raymond. And Raymond came to see, he seen us coming down and he stopped us and he says, no, the guy apologized to me and everything and don't do anything. But yeah, Raymond was really a nice guy. I think he was fighting cancer or something. I think he beat it while he was in there, but yeah, he was a good guy. I happen to he actually told me when I get home, he says, come up and see him. And I never got the chance. Me and another guy that we did time together too.
Here's one from the live stream, Mio Lupare. I normally don't have a problem with people who cooperated. I guess it's different when he did it for money and against people you knew. Vinny Artuso and Greg O. You're a lowlife, Lewis.
Okay, that would be for Lewis. We'll give that to Lewis another time too. Vinny Artusi, yeah, I just mentioned Vinny's son Johnny, who I was away with too. Look, I get it. You know, it's tough, that life. You know what I mean? It's you know, I'm not making excuses for anybody. You know, everybody has their own reasons for doing things, but it's a hard life. There's a lot of cutthroats in there too, and it's just not. Listen, when I was a kid, you know, it was a couple of wise guys I liked because I didn't know how they was, but there was also a lot of us, we didn't like gangsters. We were like, who the hell they think they are, and this and that. But it was a different thing. We had our own little clique and crew together, and that's what you're supposed to do. Stick. If everybody in the crew stuck together, the feds would have nothing. Forget about the wiretaps, because nobody ever talked on the phone anymore. We all knew that. The only way you would have to do it is if somebody was actually wearing a wire for you, or like when Lewis said, when they bugged John's club that time, somebody on the inside got in there to do it. And don't forget, you are not supposed to be talking about past things that you do. But basically, for the most part, if you stuck together, the feds would have nothing. And that's what my show was all about from the beginning. We started this here thing when I started the Goodfellow Podcast. It's all about how worse the government is than the mafia. The mafia got nothing over the government. And I'll tell more stories about how the FBI gave me permission to kill. Okay, so you'll hear more about that. I'll get more into that on another show.
Vincent Paglialunga Jr. says, Joe and or Lewis, do you know anything about the pizza connection here in Newburgh, New York? I believe here Sal's Pizza and a roller rink called Upstate Roller Rink. I'm talking way back. Salud.
Yeah, that's a old one too. Like we said, that back in the days they used to do and I said it, the pizza boxes, but I think Payman was the one who told me about they used to have the heroin in the jars of the sauce, stuff like that. But the pizza connection was big. As a matter of fact, I think, I'm not sure, but I'm gonna have to ask Dominic though too. I think Ace Anthony Ace Aiello, his father was connected to the pizza connection, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I'll ask Dominic that too. But I don't know about, you know, listen, they were all over the place. Heroin goes all over, drugs go all over, weed goes all over, you know, it just goes wherever it goes. But I don't know if it was up in Newburgh, but like I said, the only place in Newburgh I remember was my friend's place. He had a strip bar up there.
We'll do a couple more here. We're gone for an hour and 10 minutes now.
Okay, so yeah, that's good.
Sign off, guys.
Sure, it's Sunday. I want to relax. And I'm sure everybody else.
We want to go get some sun too. Just like
yeah.
Kev Smith says, I got a question for you, Joe. Are you still coming to my wedding?
Oh, I'd love to, Kev. Yeah, I would love to, Kev. Believe me, I really would. I think we would have a ball. And I'd even get up there and sing too. Believe me, if you wanted me to, I would. I've sang at plenty of weddings. And I wish you the best too, no matter what happens.
Jimmy Calandra, Bath Avenue story.
Holy shit, Jimmy, yeah.
He says, how's the mob today compared to the old days?
Well, Jimmy, Jimmy Calandra, yeah, Jimmy he's a Bath Avenue story. Jimmy, let me tell you something. It's a lot different. But it was still as cutthroat back in your days as well too, because I was down there on at the Big Apple Car Company around Spiro's guys. So we're gonna have to talk about that and maybe get you on the show one day. I like your stories, and you had some tough crew you guys were hanging around with. And what a shame what happened to your friend. But let me tell you something. The mob today compared to the old days, it's nothing. Back in the days, even though it was ruthless in its own way, it seemed to have a better code, a better honor. And I think you might agree with me, but I'm not going to speak for you. But yeah, and I look forward to meeting you one of these days too. I hope so. You were talked about a lot with the Scott Murray I used to hang around with, was doing it, or Anthony Spiro's, a lot of work for him. And I actually met Spiro's daughter too once. We'll talk about that too. But thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate you to tuning in. Hope things are going well. Anyways, guys, I'm going to end it with this question because the last question. But thanks for tuning into the Goodfellow Podcast. I got some more cooking videos. I got Ask Joe. I got the shirts. I got a lot of stuff coming on. I'll see you guys hopefully next week. You guys take care. Peace and love.